Okay, next one then, a memorable journey. Okay, so again, if you haven't really been anywhere particularly memorable, make it up. The examiner's not going to know. As long as it's not too far-fetched, okay? You're not talking about aliens landing on the moon and you went on a journey with them, okay? Obviously, that's a little bit far-fetched, but if you haven't been anywhere that you think's particularly exotic, feel free to make it up, to add a little bit in, to talk about the time you went to Florida and you saw Mickey Mouse or something like that, something memorable. And the next one then, your closest friend. Okay, so think of your own opening line, and you're trying to use a range of techniques, and this will really test yourself as to how you can make it interesting. And then your hero, your local town, and then possibly a special event in your life. And again, with those sort of questions, you know, feel free to make it a bit different. You know, the potential is there that everyone's maybe going to do birthday or Christmas. Can you think of another special event that's personal to you? Because again, it is proven that the best writing is something that's personal, okay? Something that gets you interested. And that's what you write about in the best way then. Okay, so thinking about form, audience, and person and purpose. Okay, that is what the first thing you need to do when you go into the exam, because examiners in past papers have said that people have forgotten their form, audience, and purpose. Okay, so if it's about an article, they've written a letter. If it's about a letter, they've written a speech. Okay, so make it really, really clear to the examiner that you know what the form of this piece is, and you know what the audience is, and you know what the purpose is. Okay, so for example, if the question was on the formal, so write an article for the school magazine entitled My Night at the Formal. Okay, so for that one, the form is going to be an article. The audience is going to be whoever's going to read the school magazine, so that's quite broad. You know, it's going to be pupils, teachers, parents, upcoming pupils. And then the purpose. So the purpose is to inform about your night at the formal and also to entertain, okay, because there'll be an element of that in it. So that's the first thing you need to do when you go into the exam. Think of your form, audience, and purpose, and make sure you get it in the right order. Okay, so form, magazine, article, letter, speech, or presentation. These generally will be the three. I don't think the exam board will vary too much on that one, but just so you can be prepared, okay? Audience, so it could be men, women, older people, parents, year eights, the government. You know, there could be one why your school should get a new gym. You know, you need to write to the government, so just make it clear that that's what you like. And the purpose, to entertain, to inform, to persuade. So I've just popped a wee reminder in, 8 marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar, okay? So always constantly be reminding yourself of that and really, you know, take the time to check over it. Okay, so create a Wordle. This is something you can do at home. Just Google it, create a Wordle, and then do your own one, okay? Pick out keywords and phrases that are really important to this topic and create the Wordle into whatever shape or form you want at all. I've had some different ones over the time, but, you know, the more memorable, the better. You know, make it into the shape of a sandcastle, a mermaid, whatever it is that you're going to remember. And I've just given some keywords there, but you can add your own to it because it's about the things that you need to remember to do well in the exam. So rhetorical question. Okay, so that's just a question that doesn't require an answer, like do you like being crowded on a Saturday night? Then we've got alliteration, so that's repetition of the sounds of the first letter of each word, so like silly sausages, okay, so repetition of that sound. Emotive language, okay, so that's just the language that sort of evokes an emotion in the reader. So if you were to say something about Simba has to walk 3 33 miles just to get clean water every day. Okay, that's making the reader feel an emotion about that, because that's something that's quite sad. But it doesn't need to be a negative emotion, it can be positive as well. You can make someone feel happy as well through what you write. Humour. Okay, so if you can try and make it funny, try and make it humorous. Hyperbole. So that's just exaggeration for effect. Okay, so you're exaggerating about something. If it's maybe about fast food, you could say, I was so hungry I could eat a whole horse. Okay, it's exaggeration. Obviously you can't, but the examiner will get the idea of what you're trying to do there. Okay, the tone. So think about the tone of your piece. What type of tone is it that you want to create, and then stick with that throughout then. Okay. Repetition. So this is for emphasis. Repeating key words, key points. Stop smoking now. Okay, you're repeating what you want to emphasize. Rapport. Okay, so this is one that sometimes gets left out. Rapport is just getting someone alongside. Okay, creating a relationship with the audience. So if it's something that they can relate to. So for example, if you were to say in your essay, I think we all remember those jeans that we have in the back of the wardrobe that we don't fit into, but we keep them there because we all hope one day we will be able to fit into them. Okay, that's something that generally quite a lot of people can relate to. We've all maybe bought an outfit that we regret or spent money on something. So it's really creating a relationship with your audience, getting them alongside and being able to relate to them and knowing what it is they want. So that's a really key one to be looking for. Can you get your audience on side? Statistics, okay, 99% of all teachers think school should finish at 4 o'clock, whatever, statistics, getting them involved. And then direct involvement, okay, your country needs you. Okay, you're directly involving the audience. They need to do something, and you're trying to persuade them to do that. Okay, anecdote, it's just a personal story. Okay, so if you were maybe writing about fashion or something like that, can you tell a personal story? So for example, I could say there was one time I was running out to the shop and I had on a pair of red jeans, which were in fashion at the time, might I add, and then I just threw on an orange hoodie. I know what you're thinking, lethal combination, red and orange. But then there was a little chav at my local shop and he came running over and he said, "You're on fire, love." So, that's a personal story. Hopefully it'll make people laugh, but it's something that I can talk about in terms of fashion, okay? Assertive language, okay? That's asserting yourself, making it clear that you know what you want and that they should want that too, okay? So you need this new car, or drugs are wrong, and that's all there is to say about it, okay? So being assertive, because again, remember, people are more likely to believe you if you're confident in what you say, okay? So create your own Wordle, just do that online, do it yourself, and it will help you to revise, okay, to look over it. Use these key techniques that I've outlined, but also add in your own. What things do you need to remember about the personal writing? Okay, also making up rhyme, okay, this can help. So the example I've put here, under some quilts are surprisingly quick elephants. And that's to help us remember the U for unusual detail. Okay, so add something in yours that's unusual, that's a bit different, that's quite detailed. Some is for a strong statement, okay? So again, that sort of falls under the assertive language. Make a strong statement about something. I don't think smoking is wrong. I think people should be given the choice, okay? That's quite a strong statement. Quilts, or the Q, stands for quotation. Okay, so use a quotation. Mathematical experts state that, and it makes your argument sound that bit more plausible. Okay, A for anecdote, again, personal story. It is key to making your writing successful and interesting. Okay, S for statistic or fact. Quick for question, okay, and then E for exaggeration, okay. So maybe if you want to pick some techniques and make up your own rhyme, can't think of any off the top of my head, but under some quilts are surprisingly quick elephants. If that helps you remember, then that's a really good way of doing it. So at home now, take your time and come up with a rhyme that's applicable to you. Okay, so blink test. This might look a little bit confusing, but all it is what grade would you give this just by looking at it? Okay, I know, I hear you say it's just a bunch of S's, but the point I'm trying to make is that when an examiner looks at your work and there are no paragraphs, they are not going to be able to give it a good grade, okay, because the work needs to be separated into paragraphs. That's something we learn in Key Stage 3, and it's so important. So do remember your paragraphs, and if at the end you realise you haven't put any in, do a little asterisk and do an MP for new paragraph, just so you're covering your back here and you've got paragraphs in. We take a new paragraph, remember, when we're talking about a new time, a new place, a new topic, or a new person, okay? So think about new paragraphs and when you're going to put them in. It just shows us what's different about it. So again, here we have 3 paragraphs, but they're different lengths. Okay, so the first paragraph sort of a medium one. Then the second one's a shorter one, maybe where you're building up tension. And then the third one is a longer one where you're maybe being more descriptive, okay? That just shows an examiner that you have control of your writing, that you have done this for effect, okay? It doesn't sort of suggest that, oh, he ran out of things to say in paragraph 2. It suggests that in paragraph 2, he or she wanted to make it shorter for effect, okay? To help us when we're reading it. So an examiner looks at that and they think quite positively about it. So show the examiner that you are in control of your writing, okay?